Okay, so I'm going to go through a little bit more about editing than in the previous video because I want to show you a little bit more about preparing your clips before adding them to the timeline. In the previous version, I was just bringing clips in and trimming them down here on the timeline as I needed to, but that's not the only way to do it. That's probably not even, it's certainly not the advised way 100% of the time, but no two editors edit the same. You find a way that works for you. As long as you know both approaches, then you choose which is right for you in a given circumstance. Okay, so I've just put the music down as before. I'll turn that down a touch because it's going to be too loud. There you go. All right, so you should be able to hear that enough to know it's going. All right, so I'm going to open up my city clips here. I'm going to put in my aerial shot. Now, rather than dragging it onto the timeline here, I've just double clicked it and I placed it up here in the source window. This is the source, this is the program. So this is where you select how much of a clip you want to add to the timeline. This is where you watch what you've built so far on the timeline. So this is related to this. If I play this, see this blue playhead here, and there's another one here, down here. If I play this one, that one moves with it. So you can see they both start to move. So this is the physical building blocks to show you this, okay? So let's go back to the start. So let's say I've got this footage here. I'm going back to the start here and I'm going to play it. I've got helicopters and sirens, some voices. And let's say I don't want to use all of that. I could drag the whole thing down and then I could trim it and what have you. Get the bit I want, trial and error. I just done delete that. Or I can go up here and be a bit more precise about it. Let's say I only want to say, I don't want from the very start. Let's say I decide right from there, that's where I'm going. There's a button here called mark in, and you see the letter I in brackets beside it. If I press I, it's the same as pressing that button. So it marks it in, right? Play, spacebar. Say about there, that's where I want to stop. I'm going to say mark out, right? So I can now drag this clip down to here, but it'll only take this section. Okay, so I drag that down, it's only that section. Okay, now I can mute the audio there if I want to. Mute that track. And I'll play it back now. Can't hear any of the helicopter stuff. But let's say I realize, you know what, I'm never going to use that audio. I just want to use the video. See these two buttons down here? Drag video, drag audio. So I'm just going to drag video. And it only drags down the video for me. That's one less step for you having to unlink them. Because if I go back a couple of steps with Command Z, there they both are there. If I click on one, the other one is selected. If I click on the audio, the video is selected as well. So now I'd have to unlink that, click on the audio, delete it. That's 3 or 4 mouse clicks to get rid of that footage when really all I had to do was grab the video and drag that down on its own. If I decide later on, you know, I actually want the audio as well, I can drag the audio and slot it into place with it. They're not linked, so if I choose one, the other one, and I say if I wanted to move them, I'd have to move them together. Sorry, Command Z. Or I select them both, right click, and I link them again. Now they're linked. And you can see there that I didn't line those up properly. So that red signal means that they're out of sync with each other. So it remembers that they were once together, and but now they weren't lined up properly. So I can link it again. I don't get any red lines. That tells me they're perfectly lined up now. Let's just mute that for the time being. I'm going to take this one, double click that, and I put it in there. And I'm going to say, actually, you know, I don't want all of this either. Play it there. So I'm going to go from there. I'm going to mark it in. So this is a higher quality clip, so it's kind of struggling a bit for now, but it'll get okay in a minute. So I'll stop it there and mark it out. I'm only taking this much. I drag it down onto the timeline, lock it against the previous clip. Now, because I didn't use all of this clip and all of this clip, there's a little bit, like let's say I go back and I say, actually, in that first clip, I actually do want that bit from the start. I can just drag it back out. This is non-destructive editing. So when I drag this clip into here and chop a little bit off and bring it down here, I have only brought that bit down visually, but the rest of it is still there. So I can always get that back. When you drag something from here into here and then back onto the timeline, the one on the timeline is a copy of that one. That one completely exists, and it's still connected to that one. This is called what used to be called an instance of that one. So it basically refers back to that one, and it says, right, we're only using this much of it. But this is important because I'm not using all of either of those clips, which means I can have a transition through them. When you do a transition, remember, go into our effects. Let's do a video transition, cross dissolve. I'm going to bring this over. So I'm going to zoom in on that a little bit just so as we can see if the zoom is here for horizontal. So I've added in this cross dissolve. So cross dissolve, basically this clip finishes editing or fading out over here. This clip starts fading in here, that they're crossing over. So it needs a little bit more of this clip on this side. This one needs a little bit more clip on that side. So you always have to have a little bit extra when doing dissolves, even though this block hasn't changed in size. It's using a bit extra to fade out. This one is using a little bit extra to fade in. And you can only stretch this as far as you have footage to allow you to do that. Okay, so that's another way to do it. I'm going to go back out to my project here. I'm going to choose in my city clips. I've got one more. Double click it, puts it in there. I just got to scale this down again. And again, I'm not going to use all of it. It's kind of a time-lapse one. That might be plenty. I'm using the play bar or the space bar to start and stop playing. I mark it out. I'm only taking that bit. I drag it down. I go on the side there. And again, I'm going to go back to my effects and put in another video transition. So cross dissolve over to here. You can see where I've got a bit of the previous one and a bit of the next one. I just let it go. I can stretch that dissolve out a bit. So let's go back to the start. Now I can use this here and drag this back to the start, or I can drag here back to the start and play. Actually, let's do one more thing before we go any further. Back to our cross dissolves. I think if I drag this in here, yeah, I can add in a fade at the start. So that's a cross dissolve that goes from the very start. So it'll start at black and build itself up. Now it's working out the fades there between the two shots. That second shot is causing a bit of a problem. You see this yellow line here at the top? That means that some rendering is needed. And rendering is just a computer working out from one frame to the next how things should look. So when you're introducing one shot through another, each frame is changing. So the computer has to figure it out. So I'm going to say sequence, render. And it's the audio, I think, is causing the issue, maybe. So let's render that. Bit smoothly there. It's all a bit end of the world, isn't it? But so I'm going to say File, Save. Okay, I'm going to quit this. And now, as I was saying in the previous one, we set up the autosave, and every 5 minutes it starts saving, and it generates this folder called Adobe Premiere Pro Autosave. If I open that up, you can see it's got 6 test projects, because I called mine test. You can see they're 1049, 1043, 1033, 1028, 1022. So it's saving every 5 minutes where it can. So maybe between 1033 and 1043, it was playing or something, and it couldn't save while it's in the middle of a command or something like that. So as soon as it gets a moment where you've stopped doing something with it or moving the mouse, it'll save. or not moving the mouse, but you're not actually playing stuff or editing stuff, it'll take that chance to save. So it won't be exactly every 5 minutes. So there's 6, 10, 5, 6, 6. As close as it can get to 5 minutes, it'll save. So I could go back to any one of those. If I was to say, actually, you know what, at 10:22, this thing was perfect, I could just open up that folder. But for now, this is the one.